So when did it start getting more serious? The injection and the kind of drugs he was taking.
This was a day in August of 1941. Germany had invaded the Soviet Union on June 22nd. So this is about 6 weeks into the campaign, which was called Unternehmen Barbarossa. And Germany was doing pretty well. And it came to a crucial moment where High Command said, now we're going to take Moscow. And Hitler said, no, we're going to split up the troops and take Leningrad, which is now St. Petersburg, in the north, and in the south, we're going to go for the oil fields, basically. That was his plan. He said, let's not do Moscow. And High Command was like, this is the biggest mistake. We must take Moscow. If we take Moscow, we're going to win. And Hitler became ill for the first time on the day this decision, this is a dynamic thing that's going on. They're moving, and now they have to decide: will we split up or we will continue towards Moscow? And he had the Russian flu, in German, the Ruhr, which is a flu-type disease with very high fever. It comes they were in the field, so they were in the east, camping out. Maybe he drank water that wasn't good, or he had some, they tested everything meticulously, but he got sick. High fever, he felt like shit. And he said to Morel, and you can see that in Morel's notes. Morel describes this very vividly in his notes, which are at the Federal Archives, which no historian ever looked at except me, the non-historian, which is kind of funny. So he describes how Hitler then asks of him, basically says vitamins are not enough anymore. He's very weak. He must go to the military briefing. But the flu is quite a severe disease, I think. If you have a heavy flu, you really feel like you're going to die. You can't go to a military briefing. But Morel kind of fought with himself, and then he decided to inject an opioid into Hitler's veins intravenously, like the strongest application possible. And this was Dolantin, which is a German opioid that was legal. And I was once an exchange student in Flint, Michigan, 1988, and I was number one of the tennis team because I was quite a good tennis player.
Nice.
And we were playing our main enemy. I was at Flint Powers Catholic High School in Flint, Michigan, and I think it was Powers Central. And they had a number one, Mark Resteiner.
Still remember. Wow.
He was feared. And no one could beat him.
Yes.
And on the day of the match, I had the Russian flu, basically. I was the hope. I was the number one, the wonder kid from Germany. And they took me to a doctor, and the doctor gave me an injection. And I don't know until this day, because I was, kid. I got the injection. I was 17, and I felt great. Like the flu was gone like this. It was probably an opioid, something that just shuts off all the pain and gives you, energy. And I beat this guy in a way I totally. I thought of a new technique by playing very high balls, in the direct fierceful competition. I would have lost. So I played something that in Germany we call Fuddeln, which is something you don't really do. You just play high balls, which is not pretty to look at, but it's very effective. And he just lost his nerve, and I beat him 6-0, 6-0, something like that. Sensational. Yeah. So Hitler receives this Dolantin injection, and he gets up, he goes into the meeting room, he dominates the meeting room, he feels great. He decides, in front of everybody, no one overpowers him in that meeting. He was very good in the room. And the troops are split up. Leningrad is now a target. This weakens the general thrust towards Moscow. This is probably why they didn't take Moscow. They probably could have taken it, or maybe not. But the decision was made in August to.
I think it's one of the biggest blunders of the
to
Eastern
not take
Front.
Moscow.
To not take Moscow. I think they had a straight shot given the disorganization.
They had the one-time moment where they could have done it. And the German war machine could only win in so-called speed wars, like lightning war. only if they would do it very fast and surprise, because they were always weaker, basically. They just had this moment, this dynamic moment. And this was fueled by the methamphetamine. Also in the Soviet Union, hundreds of millions of dosages were given. So the Germans were really going. And at one point, this ends, You can't take meth for the rest of your life. You're just going to end up being a nervous wreck. But you can do it for like 2 months, you could do it. But then it stops.
I think if you're really honest about where you have the asymmetry of power, which is in the speed of the Blitzkrieg. So that's similar to Genghis Khan, who had a very small military, but their advantage was, I think at the peak it would be probably 100,000. But every soldier of Genghis Khan's had 5 horses. So
Right.
the whole point was they can move really fast. They not just fast, but they can move on all terrain. So they can go around. If wars were fought on normal roads, you were supposed to travel a certain kind of way. If you go fast and around, not on paths that are usually taking attack from all kinds of sides, that's why you can conquer as much as Genghis Khan was able to conquer. And the same thing with the Nazi forces. This is their biggest advantage, and not using that is essentially the end of its effectiveness.
I think that's also why the tank troops were such a good weapon, because they can go off-road, while military vehicles, cars, cannot do it. Like a tank can even go through a forest and just, kill, small trees and just run over it. So that was those are kind of the 5 horses that was the idea that they had at this working breakfast. That's what they presented to Hitler. We're going to use the tank force in a very different way, and that's going to enable us to win the Lightning War campaigns.
Was that one of the first times he tried an opiate like that, an intense one?
That was the first time.
And then that was it for him. He loved it.
Not immediately. Like, you can see when you study his medications that is a turning point in a way that now he deviates from the vitamins. Like, he becomes more interested in what's out there. And like from 41 to 43, he tries out a lot of medications that he didn't try out before. Before that, it was quite conventional, mostly vitamins and glucose. But now he becomes experimental, and he discusses this with Morel, and Morel is also very experimental. Like, they really nerded themselves into like, what can we use, like bull's testicle extracts. So Morel, in order to present those things to his patient A, he created a pharmaceutical company that he ran. He was the personal physician of Hitler, and he was also the CEO of Hammer Pharmaceuticals, which had its production site in occupied Czechoslovakia. And for example, at one point when Germany had invaded the Ukraine, Morel asked for a monopoly for all the organs of all the slaughtered animals from all the slaughterhouses in the Ukraine. So this was a huge logistical operation. Like, all the slaughtered animals, all the organs were removed for the personal physician of the Führer, sent in military trains back to the factory in occupied Czechoslovakia. And like the military became really upset with that, because they said, we need our trains to transport back our wounded soldiers. Now we're like, cars are full with like offal and pigs' hearts and pigs and livers, and it was totally bizarre. And Morel then became like, he was this like good-natured Dr. Feelgood in the beginning, and then when the Ukraine was occupied, he became this like business freak who like made a lot of money with his dubious hormonal concoctions, where like he would threaten the army, if you don't let the train with my raw materials go to my factory, I will tell Hitler and you will have a problem. He was acting like that. He became quite an asshole, actually. And a war criminal, because he also, at his factory where he would make the famous pig liver extract that was then tested by Hitler, and Hitler said that's a good medication. I have more energy, so this can also be sold to the German military. That's how it worked, because the regulations at the time were, that it was very difficult to bring out a new medication onto the market, because medications, to bring them onto the market, you need certain test phases and all of that stuff. So that's hard to do in a war, especially in World War II. So Hitler said to Morell, I'm going to be your guinea pig. You just make it in your factory. I test it. And if I think it's good, then I'm just going to write today you would say like a decree, because I'm the president, I can like order it that it's going to be legal all over Germany.